Good morning, Internet. I'm here with Alejandro with Steadfast HVAC. Why don't you tell everybody how to get in touch with you before we get into this and I start grilling you?
Sure. Easiest way, 719-213-7810, or just hitting us on the website, steadfastheatingandair.com.
All right. So tell us a little bit of Steadfast. What got you into this? What sets you apart? There's a lot of HVAC companies in town.
Yeah. So I've been doing this for 16 years. I've worked for plenty of competitors in the industry. And at some point you think, I'm going to start my own business and see how that goes. And so that's what I brought into this, is being a really good technician. And that was kind of the focus on, what Steadfast is being a technician first, and providing a good service.
So with that technician mindset, I imagine that you've got more of that customer education first versus being a high pressure sales. Am I speaking correctly on this? Tell me a little bit about that.
Absolutely, yeah. So we definitely pride ourselves on high service and never high pressure.
Okay.
And then making sure customers are educated and making wise decisions, whether it's ultimately a replacement and or, can it be fixed?
So how do you educate somebody of the difference of when it needs to be a repair versus a full replacement?
Well, certainly, age of system has something, a lot of things to do with it. So you have to weigh out, is this investment going to outlast the furnace age?
Okay.
But outside of that, it's just making sure homeowners are spending their money wisely.
Sounds good. I hear a lot of people always talking about the different brands, but you and I, we were talking earlier, you were telling me a little bit about the design of a system and how that can be more important than the brands. Why don't you educate the internet on that?
Sure. And, I think, brand can matter in some circumstances, but definitely, you have a lot of times where people come in and say, oh yeah, square footage is this, we're just going to put this size system in. That might be true only if your ductwork was capable of carrying that much air, okay. Which most of the time it isn't. So making sure you're doing system design, making sure you're doing load calculations, and actually building a system that's going to be efficient over the life of it is much more important than just selling somebody something just because it fits in their home.
So if you've got somebody's home where, the HVAC system, I guess this is always my impression, your bones are kind of set with how big your vents are and things of that nature. You've got certain limitations unless you really want to perform major surgery on the house. What are some of the techniques you're doing to help move air through the system, and if you've got those trouble spots?
Sure. Ultimately, yeah, you're right. You can only do so much. So whether it's doing variable speed motors, trying to move some air around, that's not the end all be all. We've got some really cool stuff where we can do one system in conjunction with the entire system and have mini splits, for example. So you can have one outdoor unit that goes to your furnace and your AC to condition the whole home, but then you can also have that branch off to a mini split that's dedicated for that one area that's troublesome.
That makes sense. How do you help educate somebody on this? Because frankly, I know that you're in an industry where you've got some competitors that have cause some disparity of trust. What's the nicest way to say that? But you've got it. You're in an industry where there's some mistrust, and so how are you overcoming those objections?
Yeah, so there's definitely the stigma of the shady contractor, and so overcoming that takes a lot of information, coming with the facts, showing our reviews, and then just doing things that set us apart, because most of the time people aren't coming in and doing manual J and doing load calculations and presenting it in a fact where it makes sense. And so when customers see something like that, even in an estimate where it costs me money to present those things and I'm not charging anything for it, it sets us apart.
Okay. Colorado's a very green state. We've got all kinds of stuff that's always happening, new industry standards. I imagine you guys are staying at the tip of the sword on that, but what are you doing to help educate customers with new efficiency things, green initiatives, things of that nature?
So we've got a ton of blog work on the website as far as, heat pumps, high efficiency furnaces, things like that. With the electrification, like moving in, that's the way we're going. And so, most people are hesitant just because heat pumps never worked in cold climates, but they've got that dialed in now to a T. Sad piece is, December 31st last year, they removed the tax incentives for that. But Colorado instituted a purse with 2 new programs, Here and Her, that have a $60 million purse for people who want to do those high efficiency upgrades to their home and get them in at a fraction of that cost.
Sounds good. What are some of the most common things that you're finding when you're meeting with a homeowner that they're just not doing that could help their system last longer?
Change your filter. That's it's as simple as that sounds. Or using the expensive filters that it's just a gimmick, right? You get these. They're like, oh, they catch all this stuff. They do all these things. It's really a restriction to the system. So the expensive filters are never really the best case. It's always cheap filters. Change it more frequently. Change them in general, and then have maintenance done.
So when you're sitting there talking about filter changes, how often should we be doing that? I've heard anything from monthly to season changes. I hear every time there's daylight saving time is too long.
Yeah, so once a year is not the answer. But
Christmas.
At a minimum, every 3 months is good.
Okay.
Preferably if you're running the system year round, one every month would be okay. You might get away with a little longer than that, but yeah, preferably at least every 3 months.
Do you guys do things to really help combat that environment here in Colorado with humidifiers, air purifiers? What does that look like?
Yeah, all the things. So we do full service air quality from purification to scrubbing to UV lights, humidity, like not so much dehumidification, but we do all the above.
I hear a lot of HVAC companies that run specials for AC in the winter and specials for heaters in the summer. What's the shtick on that one?
Anything to get your foot in the door, I guess, is the answer to that. Because things aren't getting cheaper. There's not a better time to do it. The longer you wait, the more expensive it's going to be.
All right. Do you have any favorite stories of a client you've worked with where you were able to kind of save the day and they thought they were kind of up against it?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, plenty of circumstances where we go in for a free second opinion. Customer was under the impression they had to replace their system. Turns out, they might have needed a few $100 repair, and we were out.
That's fantastic.
Absolutely.
We've got a great group here that we're talking in front of. I don't want to steal all the questions. Any questions from the audience? Yes, you can even ask about your own personal situation.
Yeah.
What's the point of documentation? So you go to someone's house and you do maintenance. You provide just a conversation. You provide a full afterward. What do you provide?
Absolutely, yeah. So it is a furnace is going to be a 52-point inspection with a full report on good, bad, otherwise, and so then you would get any recommendations. AC, we actually have a full report because we have internal operations, refrigerant moving and things of that nature. So you actually get graded on that. So yeah, we provide pictures, before and afters, good and bad, all documented on a file that you get tangibly when we're done.
Any other questions from the audience?
What's some of the weirdest stuff you found in somebody's HVAC?
I shouldn't answer that question. I have found an army of adult toys in some
Oh my goodness.
It was not a good hiding spot.
Oh man, that's hard.
Yeah, I mean.
So that actually leads me to another question. Are you guys doing things like vent cleaning, the AeroSeal, services like that as well?
So we don't do AeroSeal yet, but we definitely do duct cleaning, dry vents, for sure.
Very good. Dry vents I've always heard are crazy important to get cleaned. Those get overlooked often.
Once a year, preferably, yeah.
Really, that often?
Yeah.
Okay. That is about all the time we have, but I do want to let you sign off, remind everybody how to get in touch with you.
Absolutely. So it's steadfastheatingair.com, Steadfast Heating and Air, Facebook, 719-213-7810.